Warsaw, Poland, 2022. For most people, it's a city of history, culture, and bustling modern life. For Lena, a bright and ambitious university student, it was home. Her days were a familiar rhythm of lectures, library study sessions, and late-night talks with friends over coffee. She was mapping out her future, full of promise and potential. No one could have predicted that her life was about to unravel in a way that would challenge the very boundaries of science and faith. It began subtly, as these things often do. A whisper in the dark. It started with sleep. Lena, who had always been a deep sleeper, began experiencing night terrors so vivid, so visceral, that they left her drenched in sweat and screaming into the silence of her apartment. Her roommates grew concerned, but they initially dismissed it as the stress of upcoming exams. But the nightmares weren't just dreams, they felt like invasions. She described a chilling presence, a suffocating weight on her chest, and a voice that wasn't hers, whispering incomprehensible things in a language she didn't recognize. Soon, the darkness wasn't confined to her sleep. Her waking hours became a minefield of anxiety. Friends noticed a stark change. The once outgoing and warm Lena became withdrawn, her eyes constantly darting around, as if watching something no one else could see. She would fall into long, silent stares, completely unresponsive, what doctors would later call dissociative episodes. Then came the outbursts. Without warning, she would erupt into fits of rage, her voice dropping to a guttural register, spewing vitriol at those closest to her. During one terrifying incident, she hurled a heavy textbook across the room with a force that seemed impossible for her slender frame, her face contorted in an expression of pure malice. Her friends and family were terrified. This wasn't stress. This wasn't Lena. Fearing a neurological or psychological breakdown, Lena's family rushed her to a Warsaw hospital. The clinical environment, with its sterile white walls and fluorescent lights, was a stark contrast to the shadowy chaos consuming her. Doctors ran a battery of tests, Mr. EEG's blood work. They were looking for a tumor, a seizure disorder, a chemical imbalance, anything that could provide a rational explanation for her terrifying transformation. Every test came back negative. Her brain was healthy, her body was physically sound. Yet, the episodes continued, even within the hospital walls. Nurses documented the changes with a mixture of professional detachment and quiet fear. During her episodes, Lena would speak, not just in Polish or English, which she knew fluently, but in fluent, grammatically perfect Latin and Aramaic-conscient languages she had never studied. She spoke of historical events and personal secrets of the hospital staff, things she had no possible way of knowing. Her physical strength became astonishing. On several occasions, it took multiple orderlies to restrain her as she thrashed with a power that defied her physique. Her body would contort into unnatural positions, her joints seemingly bending at impossible angles. Doctors, men and women of science, were left struggling for an explanation. Their medical charts filled with observations that read more like pages from a medieval manuscript than a modern medical file. With medical science offering no answers and Lena's condition worsening, her deeply religious family made a desperate choice. They sought help from the church. After a careful and skeptical investigation, the local archdiocese, convinced they were not dealing with a medical or psychiatric condition, authorized an exorcism. The process was to be conducted under strict protocol, a collaboration that felt unprecedented. Clergy would lead the rite, but a team of medical professionals would be present at all times, monitoring Lena's vital signs, ready to intervene if her physical health was compromised. The setting was a quiet, private room, stripped of most furniture. The only light came from a single lamp, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The first session began. As the priest started the rite of exorcism, the atmosphere in the room grew heavy, electric. Lena, who had been catatonic moments before, snapped to attention. Her eyes, filled with an ancient and chilling intelligence, locked onto the priest. A voice, deep and resonant, a sound that seemed to come from the very depths of the earth, erupted from her throat, mocking the prayers in flawless Latin. "You have no power here, little man of God," it rasped, a cruel smile twisting Lena's lips. Her body convulsed on the bed, her heart rate skyrocketing on the monitor. Doctors watched, their faces pale, as she fought against unseen bonds. The sessions were grueling, lasting for hours. Each prayer was met with a torrent of blasphemies and violent physical resistance. The room would turn unnervingly cold, and the medical equipment would flicker and malfunction without explanation. The priests and doctors worked in shifts, exhausted physically, mentally, and spiritually. They were fighting a war on two fronts, one for her soul, the other for her life. For weeks, it seemed like a losing battle. The entity inside Lena seemed to revel in the suffering it caused, feeding on the despair in the room. The team was pushed to the brink of their endurance. Then, one evening, during what would be the final session, something shifted. The priest, his voice hoarse but his resolve unbroken, held his crucifix aloft and commanded the entity by its name, a name revealed during a previous rite. For a moment, there was a deafening silence. Lena's body went rigid, her back arching off the bed in a pained, inhuman way. A final guttural scream tore from her throat, a sound of rage and defeat that echoed through the building. And then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. She collapsed back onto the bed, her body limp. The oppressive cold in the room vanished. The monitors, which had been wildly fluctuating, settled into a steady, calm rhythm. A nurse rushed to her side, checking her pulse. After a few agonizing seconds, Lena's eyes fluttered open. They were her own again. Confused, weak, she looked around the room at the exhausted faces staring back at her. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice fragile. Her own. In the weeks that followed, Lena made a full recovery. She had no memory of the events that had transpired over the past few months. To her, it was a terrifying blank, a lost period of her life. The doctors who witnessed the events were left without a conclusive medical explanation. Their official report noted a sudden and complete remission from a severe psychogenic disorder of unknown origin. But privately, many admitted they had seen something that day that their textbooks could not explain. The clergy were certain they had witnessed a genuine case of demonic possession and a successful liberation. So, what truly happened to Lena in Warsaw in 2022? Was she the victim of a rare and complex mental illness that science has yet to categorize? An illness that mimicked the historical tropes of possession with chilling accuracy? Or did she fall prey to something far older, a malevolent entity that exists just beyond our understanding? The line between the mind's darkest corners and the world's darkest forces remains blurred. Lena's story stands as a chilling reminder that even in our modern, scientific world, there are still shadows that we cannot fully comprehend. The question lingers, and perhaps it is one we are not meant to answer. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the unknown. Stay curious and stay safe.